Shasky is we got the Grizzlies and Warriors. Evan Barnes is coming up. I'm sure it's been a slow news day or a slow 6 days for him out in Memphis, Tennessee. John Morant, he's away from the team. Steven Adams is going to get reevaluated in 4 weeks. They're sliding. Ja's not there. And now you got Dylan Brooks talking. And Draymond Green clapping back.
It's just hilarious.
And this is why you love and hate Draymond Green. Like, where are we at with Draymond Green today? Yesterday, we got an abundance of calls about Draymond Green. Like, can't wait for him to leave. Can't stand him. He quit on the team. We both were disappointed in Draymond Green yesterday about him quitting on that play in the first half. Then he ethers Dylan Brooks. And we all hate Dylan Brooks. We all, sports hate Dylan Brooks. Can't stand him. And Draymond Green ethers him, and now we're like, yeah, that's our guy. That's our dog. Draymond Green.
That's the complicated relationship that we have with Draymond Green. Don't you have people in your life like that?
Absolutely.
Like, okay, for example, my father and I, right? My father and I have had and again, we don't have a typical dad-son relationship. It's very unique. The way we talk to each other is very unique. And there's times my mom hates you to talk to your father that way. But our relationship is so weird and so different. Others may not understand it, right? But to me, I still love him. He drives me completely insane. I can't live without him also simultaneously. Yep. And we've done things to each other over the years that other families would probably look at and go, that is not what you do to a family member, right? Yep. But our relationship is weird and toxic or whatever from the outside. But from the inside, I'd do anything for the guy. And at times, I feel that way with Draymond. I can't even explain the rationale behind the relationship between me and Draymond Green.
Well, I saw somebody on YouTube. I didn't see the name, but shout out to that person on YouTube because they said they were playing pickup basketball outside of this market.
Yeah.
And people were like, Draymond Green's not that good. You guys overrate Draymond Green. Kenny Caraway, ESPN 1320, tweets all the time about Draymond Green. Like, come on, man, he's overrated. People outside of this market don't see the value of Draymond Green on his basketball team. But you posed the question, is he the most hated athlete in other markets, outside of this market, when it comes to Bay Area athletes?
I think
Barry Bonds was hated, but he was respected.
Yes.
Terrell Owens was hated, but he was respected. There's a lot of people who's been hated, but they've been respected. Kevin Durant, but you knew how damn good he was.
And I think his decision to come, people saw that as super, super, super weak. Right? Like, and I understand that point of view. Whereas Draymond occupies this space where not only do people hate him and he's so brash and forthright, I think they also think that he's not good. Like, I legitimately believe that people don't think he's that. Like, I think that they think he is not the co-pilot of these championships, more a passenger.
No doubt.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. They think he's just, Barkley said it. He's not the lead singer in the band. He's in the background.
As I do a quick aside, Tyler Miller just crushing my dad right now. Low-key, Papa Shasky is the Team Morant of this show.
Nah, I'm not going to. Don't do that.
That's funny.
That's funny. It is funny.
That's funny.
By the way, I
can't find the Tom.
I did see his photos out there in Key West.
Oh, my God. Is he
90
stunning?
miles away from Cuba.
Is he stunting?
Oh, dude, he's flexing so hard.
Noreen,
the Bolognas.
Dude, my dad is having the greatest trip. And by the way, if you want to follow my dad's trip, just follow on Facebook. He posts everything.
He posts everything, no doubt. He's worse than Shasky, or he's worse than Butcher when it comes to posting. We can take pictures together. Butcher posted in like 5 seconds.
Well, I'm trying to get that algorithm up.
Well, Papa Shasky, he posted 2 seconds.
Not even, yeah. He knows more about what's happening in life in real time than any person I know.
No. Although he didn't post a sick photo of us going on a flight, the red eye.
Yeah, I was surprised. He kept that to himself.
Yeah, that was a great shot. By the way, I realized on my refrigerator yesterday.
What's that?
When your pops had his retirement party, we all took photos and stuff like that. It's a photo with me, your pops, and baby Chaz.
You like that, didn't you?
That's on the fridge.
Yeah, I've got one that I framed.
Yeah, it's
my
on the
Uncle
fridge.
Jeff is the guy. So, everyone's got the family member who actually has the camera and takes good photos. Like, he takes professional quality photos and always.
And that JP Money's dad, right?
Yeah, and he always comes through with the big. So, we did all these, this is going way back, 15 years ago. My wife and I got married. We paid this photographer. Oh, my God. My wife and the photographer got into it. We had all of these, glamour, photoshops. Now it's out of control. The photos that people do for their weddings now is a whole nother level of what we did. The best photos came from my uncle, who did them for free. All the best photos.
So now he's a photographer.
But you have to have a brilliant mind to be able to snap the right photo in the right spot. I do think that artistry is so difficult.
So
I have
he's got a great
tremendous respect
mind
for photographers.
He's got a great mind. What about JP Money?
He's not a photographer, though he will tell me his Android has better pixelation than my Apple.
Is he an Android guy?
Oh, dude, he ruins the chat. Yeah, he ruins the chat.
Nothing worse than a green text.
Is he really an Android guy?
Yes, and all in our family threads, I literally want to buy him a burner just to give it to him so he can have a number so he can just stay just for the family threads.
I have one sibling.
It drives me nuts.
I have 9 siblings, so the family text during Christmas time is wild. My one brother has a Droid. Everyone else has an Apple. We have actually excommunicated him from the chats. He's not allowed to join.
It's always one person.
And then
it's always one person in every chat.
And they do the same thing. Well, mine is better quality, and it's cheaper, and it's better, and it's this, and it's Apple's messaging service, and blah, 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 blah. Like, dude, just stop.
And I've had Androids. I've had iPhones. I'll take the same damn pictures. I can tell you, this one's got more pictures.
It's the non-conformity for me. That's what they think that they're like special because they're not conforming to Apple.
No doubt. It's weird. Well, 650 Xfinity Mobile text line. Half Moon Bay in the state championship for the first time ever. Half Moon Bay boys. That's right. Shout out to Half Moon Bay. That's big time. We brought that up on the podcast. Draymond Green. And I'm looking at the comments here. You asked the question, is he the most hated? Because a lot of people don't respect his game. They don't see 25 points per game.
No.
They don't see 11 rebounds.
There's a status that comes with point scoring.
Right.
Which we can argue about, but like there is like they give contracts out in the NBA based on points per game.
He's basically,
at least that's a big part of it.
He's been a glue guy.
Yes.
He's been very important to the goal. And I feel disrespectful by calling him a glue guy.
No, he's not. He's a core guy.
He's one of the core guys.
Yeah.
But he bumps his gums.
Yes.
And I think that's why everybody hates him.
I think you're right. And also, I do think that people they see the defense and all that. Like, they don't think he's even on the Ben Wallace level. I don't think they think he's on the Horace Grant level.
Who would be more hated, do you think, outside this market right now? Draymond Green or Barry Bonds?
Well, but Barry's got the cheating thing, and so I think that puts him in a whole nother level of infamy.
Do you think...
Like, it's different. I just think it's different.
Do you think fans outside of this market respect the fact that Draymond has 4 championships in the DPOY?
No. I think that Barry Bonds, just real quick on Barry, and then we'll get to Dre. I think if you polled average American sports fan and said Barry Bonds, they would all say the same thing.
Cheater.
Why did he have to cheat? He was so good he didn't have to cheat.
But they wouldn't even say why. They'd just say cheater.
Yeah, but I'm saying like I think they all recognize like, oh, he was great, but he cheated. And like it like kind of like stops the argument right then and there. Draymond Green, I think a lot of people say, yeah, Stephen Clay. I think a lot of people start there.
Tyler Miller,
and I don't think that's fair.
Great point. People here in the Bay do hate Draymond Green. It's weird.
Man, he is. If you bring up his name on throughout any show throughout the week, you will get callers on Draymond Green.
Here's a little snippet of what he said about Dylan Brooks yesterday on the Draymond Green show.
Draymond talks a lot. You talk a lot now. So if you have 4 rings, sure, you talk a lot more. For All-Stars, you probably talk a bit more. Defensive Player of the Year, you for damn sure would talk more. 2 Olympic gold medals, you definitely would be talking because that would mean you beat Team USA, and we all know how that goes. So
on the technical fouls.
Gets away with a lot, too. What exactly do I get away with? I have 15 texts, 1 less than your dumb ass. Okay, great.
So that was Draymond Green responded to Dylan Brooks because last week Dylan Brooks basically said, look, man, Draymond Green, now I'll read the full quote here as I pull it up, Shasky. Dylan Brooks, we know how polarizing he is. He's talked a lot about the Golden State Warriors. Remember before Christmas, he goes, I got Clay. I ain't worried about Steph. Clay was doing a lot of talking last year. I got Clay. And Clay cooked his ass on Christmas, and he did that little dance over. Remember that? Remember that? I don't know what that was. And Clay picked up the technical foul. But, you know, he was talking
about... They better not lay a stinker tonight.
He can't lay a stinker tonight.
No, they. I'm talking about the whole team. Steve Kerr better bring it tonight with these boys.
Yeah, this is a big game. They've got it. We got to get some good vibes here before they come back out to the West Coast against the Bucks. I want it. Don't you want this win?
Of course I do. I'm trying to now think about just the Bay Area landscape right now. Like, there's no one on the A's that's hateable or no one even knows who's
Canseco, probably. That's about
I'm
it.
talking about currently.
Currently? Oh,
currently.
No, you can't even
period.
You can't even name anyone on
Yeah, Canseco's pretty much hated. But I also consider him simultaneously a Ranger just because of some of his buffoonery as a Ranger. But he is an A. I will admit there. La Russa, I hated La Russa, but I also understand his place in history in terms of creating bullpens. The Giants, Bonds is the guy, right?
Bonds is the guy.
Yeah, there's like nobody hates Brandon Belt outside of this.
Nobody hates Buster Posey.
No.
Some people may.
Ooh,
Madison Bumgarner.
That's a good one, but not on the level of Draymond.
No.
Again, respect him. I think they
respected him, but some of the antics.
I think the borderline thing with Draymond, the number one, he's not respected. I don't think he is. I think he is not respected as a player enough, and hence why people hate him even more.
Well, if you say Draymond Green Hall of Fame, people are like, Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I do think people say that. And I don't think that's right.
Because there's other guys who played like him. Like, you take Michael Cooper, for example, the LA Lakers, Showtime Lakers.
Yes.
5-time champion, numerous all-defensive teams, and he won Defensive Player of the Year. Had to chase around Larry Bird.
Yeah, and the third, fourth, or fifth name, depending on what team you're talking about on that Lakers squad.
Because you're going Magic, Kareem,
of course,
Worthy, Byron Scott. You may be going Michael Cooper may be the fifth name.
That's what I'm saying.
Norm Nixon may come before him at times.
Yep.
So if Michael Cooper's not in the Hall of Fame, some people say, well, how can you put Draymond Green in the Hall of Fame if Michael Cooper's not in the Hall of Fame? That's the argument from a lot of people.
That's a great point. But that's, I think when people hear about the Draymond Green, just like his contributions to this team, Warrior fans all of us will say they don't win championships without Draymond Green. I think people outside of this market go, oh, they would have won championships no matter what.
Yep.
And I don't think that's right. I think that's just that doesn't add up to me. So there's a disconnect between how we view him and how others view him.
So Dylan Brooks said this last Friday. I don't like Draymond at all. I just don't like Golden State. I don't like anything to do with them.
And we don't like him.
Draymond talks a lot. Gets away with it a lot, too. Like Dylan Brooks doesn't get away with things. His game is cool with Golden State. But if you put him anywhere else, you are not going to know who Draymond Green is. He plays with heart, plays hard, knows the ins and out of their defense. I guess that's why they like him over there. And then, of course, in this article, Draymond Green, asked by a Warriors spokesperson for a comment, Draymond laughed and chose to pass on the opportunity to respond. Well, he just waited 6 days to respond.
See, I think the people around the league think he's more Kurt Rambis than who he is.
Believe Draymond Green is Kurt Rambis?
Like he's more like this enforcer type who's they don't see the sophistication of his offensive passing. They don't see the communication on defense and how I think he's the greatest help defender in the last 30 years.
Screen setting.
Yes.
They'll say, oh, anybody can set screens. Well, obviously James Wiseman couldn't set a screen out here. He had trouble setting screens. Must not be that easy. You know what I'm saying?
But do you think people outside of the Bay Area realize how hated he is?
I do. He's hated here.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's hated here.
That's a good point. Like, when I went to Boston for that final series, the respect level for everyone, whether it's the media or the fans, Steph had a respect level.
No doubt.
Klay Thompson had a respect level. And then there was Draymond Green. And they thought so low of Draymond Green. They thought he was riding the coattails of everyone else. And I couldn't believe it. And it's like, look, even if you don't think Day-Day's all that, I couldn't believe how low they thought of him.
Dude.
It was as if they'd never watched him play.
It was deafening in there. It was deafening. And it got to him. He admitted it got to him.
Well, it got to me. I had old ladies double birding me.
I was sitting up there with the banners like, damn, this is wild. Anyway, let's bring in our guy, Evan Barnes. Southern California's finest, now in Memphis, Tennessee, covering the Grizzlies for the Memphis Commercial Appeal. Also covers the Memphis Tigers basketball and football team. We love Evan. Known him since 2012. Shasky, you love him. Yep. We all love him in the Bay Area. And Evan, good morning, man. Long time no talk. Haven't seen you since the Western Conference semifinals. And I gotta guess that it's been a slow news cycle out there in Memphis the last 6 days, huh?
My brother Bonte, first of all, good to talk to you, Joe. Good to talk to you too. It was all good a week ago. The quote crazy, right? It was all good a week ago. We were sitting here Thursday after the Grizzlies had beaten the Rockets. Everything seemed to be pretty good. And the last 6 days, I don't know what you can say, man. It's been a lot.
Well, let's put Ja to the side for a second. We'll get to him. Let's start with Draymond Green before we get to Dylan Brooks. What is your thought? Like Memphis, give me the feel of Memphis fans and someone like Draymond Green after what he said on his podcast yesterday and just how you guys view Draymond Green.
Well, I will just say that came out of nowhere because Draymond didn't respond to what Dylan Brooks said in the feature that was written on ESPN.
Right.
So we thought Draymond obviously was going to let it go, but it turns out Draymond was just setting up Dylan for the 2023 version of Ether on the NBA circuit. I mean, it was brutal. It was brutal. I mean, I was looking at Twitter to see what people were saying, and even diehard Grizzly fans were like, dang, like, he didn't have to do that boy like that, you know. But honestly, I mean, Draymond Green is, I always say this, if Draymond Green was wearing the Grizzlies uniform, he would be beloved because of how he plays.
Yeah.
Right.
He has that same mentality, that grit and grind energy, that dog in him, that hard-working energy who maximizes the best of himself. But right now, he is a villain. He is a villain the way that Dillon Brooks is a villain in a lot of other arenas. But, I mean, as our Grizzlies writer Michael Cole said, I have no idea how Dillon Brooks is not going to try to get technical tonight after what Draymond said. Because he pulled his card in a bad way. Like, I felt bad almost for him.
I mean, tonight's going to be wild for you. I know you're going to be excited to be there at the FedEx Forum when the Warriors take on the Grizzlies. First time they've been there since they got beat down by 39 points in that second-round matchup last year. Evan, how do Memphis fans feel about Dillon Brooks? I was watching the Laker game the other night, and he had 3 corner threes wide open. Fourth quarter, he clanks them. And even in that Game 6 last year against the Warriors, he goes 11-29. He starts off hot. Then he just kind of shoots you guys out of the game. How do Grizzly fans really feel about Dillon Brooks?
Well, Dillon Brooks is a polarizing figure here for obvious reasons. On the one hand, he plays hard. He plays with a passion. He is, you know, Taylor Jenkins always calls him the spirit leader of the team. He plays in a way that you want somebody with that fiery personality. You know, he's been on the team. He's the longest tenured player who's been in Memphis. But there is the other side where right now he has struggled. He's been struggling all year. And typically when things go bad, everybody blames the volume shooter, and that's Dillon Brooks. So I think that's where it gets polarizing, because obviously there was right before the trade deadline, some fans were booing him. And
right.
Dillon Brooks told us, he didn't care because it's part of what happens. He knows what the locker room feels about him. So he's just a very polarizing player. But there are a lot of people who like Dillon Brooks, believe it or not. But I think the question is going to be what happens this summer with him as a free agent. Will the Grizzlies bring him back? Will the Grizzlies, try to make a move with him, sign and trade? We don't know. But that's going to be probably the biggest storyline of the summer is this Dillon Brooks' last season in Memphis? And honestly, it's hard to say, but I think, to answer your question, Monte, he is a very polarizing figure here, but a lot more people like him than you think.
So let's get to the Ja Morant big question here. Like, what's going on with Ja Morant in terms of returning this year? We've kind of plowed through everybody's feelings on where he's at in his life and all that whatnot. What is your feel on how long he's out? Does he return this season?
It's hard to say. I mean, all we know right now is that he's going to miss at least the next 4 games. And he said he's taking time away to learn how to manage stress and take care of his well-being. Listening to that statement, it does not sound like this is going to be a quick return for him. I mean, and again, this is just me speculating. I just don't know what he is going to take care of. Obviously, we know what happened with the video that was posted to Instagram Live last Saturday. We know that Colorado police have declined to file charges against them. The NBA's investigation is still ongoing. But at this point, it's just a matter of we just don't know. Taylor Jenkins has really kind of kept it very simple, saying that, they're going to give him time away. They're not going to rush him back. It's just a matter of what he needs to do. So we don't know. I mean, it's one of those things right now where it's not a suspension, and you just don't know. And I thought about this yesterday. Ja is also of a generation where we've seen Naomi Osaka take time away when she's not feeling right. And that can mean stepping aside from a Grand Slam tournament that she's in, or leaving a tournament that she's in to take time for herself. Ja Morant is very familiar with that story. So this could be a case where Ja could be taking weeks away. We just don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me because clearly Ja understands that the time away for him is going to be helpful for him to hopefully make some amends, check what he needs to do, and make some changes around him with his decisions as well as his people.
Evan Barnes here on the Morning Russell 95.7 The Game, covering the Grizzlies for the Memphis Commercial Appeal. Does a great job out there in Memphis, Tennessee. So following up on that Ja statement, one, how do Memphis fans feel about Ja right now? And two, I know it's a two-part question here, but T. Morant, where does he factor into this? Because from us outside the market, you're around him a lot. You're around that team a lot, Evan. from the outside looking in, it looks like T. Morant is one of his boys instead of his father. We see him on the court side all the time with the yak and everything, with the shades on. Where does T. Morant, let's just start with T. Morant. Where does he factor into this?
Well, with T, honestly, and I'll say this, in Memphis, T. Morant is well-loved. You know, T. Morant has been well-loved by Memphis fans as he's gotten here. He's posed for pictures before games. He is very much a part of the Memphis atmosphere. But I will say this. I've noticed this year that T has kind of like scaled back a little bit. Like he shows up. He used to show up during shoot-around pregame warm-ups. He'd show up and sit courtside, and he would chill and, enjoy watching that. Lately, I've noticed that he started to come into games a little bit closer to tip-off. So maybe that's a change that's happening, is that, he's not as omnipresent, before games as much. Right. But I do wonder. I mean, I have said that, it may be a situation where I'm sure that he's talking to Ja. I'm sure he is. But I've also listened to other people who've said, Ja is a 23-year-old. He has to make those decisions for himself because, as I think Jalen Rose said, when you become the breadwinner, you become the leader. Mm-hmm. And I think Ja has to be able to say, okay, who do I listen to? Mm-hmm. Who do I look at and say, this is who I need to take care of and be mindful of when they give me advice? Mm-hmm. As far as T, I'm sure T and his mother Jamie are in his ear talking, but it also is difficult when, Bonte, Joe, we were 23, 24 years old. Sometimes you don't listen to your parents as much.
No doubt.
Sometimes I did, but sometimes I didn't.
Right.
Evan,
so it's hard to say.
Evan, when I was that age, I did things that changed my life forever, and it basically made me the man that I am today because I made specific decisions in my life to avoid some of the horrible things that I was facing straight in the face. And so, it has scared me straight to this day, and I mean that sincerely. I want to ask you about the culture of Memphis.
Let's just say that we should be thankful camera phones wasn't around when we were 23.
I was telling my boy Guido that the other day. I was like, dude, if we had Instagram and Snapchat and all that stuff.
We wouldn't be in the seat right now, Evan.
Because that stuff's forever. And I really do think that these younger kids, forget Ja, just younger kids in general, like they're more savvy than we are. I don't know how they navigate this. I want to ask you about the culture in Memphis, though, because like the culture in San Francisco is so different than the culture in even Stockton or the culture in Sacramento or whatever. Now I'm trying to think, like, what's the culture in Memphis? I'm looking from afar, like, hey, rappers are literally getting robbed and shot in Memphis. This is just me watching from afar, Young Dolph and whatnot. What's the gun culture in the state of Tennessee as compared to other areas? Do they look at that portion differently than the way it lands on my lap? What is the overall sense of everything that's going on in that community? What's the feel for locals when it comes to this? Because maybe we're looking at it through a different prism, because I'm not a gun guy. I don't pretend to be. So when I see that, I'm like, wow, he's really flirting with danger. Maybe their culture views it differently. Can you explain that for me?
Well, I'm gonna just say this because I'm from LA, and I grew up in the time in LA where there was gang culture around. So I will just say this: Memphis to me is not as scary as people are making it out to be.
Gotcha.
I want to start.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I want to start from that baseline because again, I grew up in LA. I grew up in Inglewood at a time where when I was in college, I didn't tell people I was from Inglewood because people would assume Inglewood always up to no good, like California Love would say. So I am familiar with how things were in 1990s LA when gang culture was running rampant. So I will just preface it by saying that. In Memphis is a cool city. Like I'm just going to just come out and say, Memphis is a cool city. Guns and all that stuff. I mean, I think that culture is not just a Memphis thing. Yeah. I think it's a situation where people feel the need to protect themselves or show off their weapons in some way. I think that's not just a Memphis thing. That is an American situation. Right. So I don't want to restrict just to Memphis. Like this is a city where obviously people have the grind in them. It's a cool place to be. It's much more chill. Like again, I've lived here for 5 years. I have felt relatively safe. Like obviously there are places I won't go, but there's places I won't go in LA or Houston or Dallas or wherever. But the thing for me is that this to me seems like a case of somebody with Ja Morant who felt the need to flex a little bit, to show off what he has. A lot of young boys, and I'm saying young boys, but I don't see a lot of women do this. A lot of young boys feel they need to flex, whether it's flashing their money, flashing their chains. And that's not restricted to Memphis. That is a big culture a lot of places. I've seen young boys, when I cover high school sports, young boys like to flash a little bit. It's an attitude when you're young, think, hey, I want to show off what I got because I made it, and I want to show off, hey, this is where I'm at. But I don't think, again, if I want to talk about young Dolph being killed here in Memphis, I can't ignore that Nipsey Hussle got killed in L.A. outside his store in L.A. So to me, it's not as much a Memphis culture thing. I think it's a situation where if you feel like the need to flex or show off your stuff, that's a culture that's in a lot of cities. And I think that we have to evaluate, is it worth it to show off certain things that make you a target? Because my worry for Ja is not about his endorsements or the Grizzlies. My worry is if he keeps doing the things he's doing, his life is at risk.
No doubt.
Because you just don't know what can happen. So that's what I'm looking at it as. It's not a Memphis culture thing or whatever. It's the sense to, hey, I made it from this. I want to show off what I got, but you got to be aware that makes you a target in certain areas, and that's just the way it is.
That is so well said, Evan. Evan Barnes here on the Memphis Commercial Appeal. Evan, you put it so well there because Ja, it felt like the warning signs were coming here, right? I've heard stories about him in Magic City. We saw the airplane shots with the alcohol and all the money. We saw him flash. And then you hear about the red laser pointer. We don't know what's true, what's not. The 17-year-old. So the signs were coming for Ja, but we've got to help this man because let's face it, he is one of the young faces of the NBA, and the NBA is trying to wrap their arms around him, and he's a hell of a talent. Shasky coaches CYO. All these kids want to be Ja.
They all wear his jersey.
They all wear his jersey. They all do the gritty and everything like that. So let's hopefully he gets help. Real quickly, Steven Adams, reevaluated in 4 weeks. It's a big injury for you guys, and I know how Steven Adams changes that lineup. What's the word on him?
Yeah, so Steven Adams this morning, literally an hour or so before we got on here, he's going to be reevaluated in at least 4 weeks after he got a stem cell injection for his sprained PCL on his knee. That's obviously a blow because Steven Adams means so much to this offense. He's one of the best, if not the best, offensive rebounders in the league. He helps that offense flow as he sets great screens. He opens the floor up for Ja. He has a great two-man game with Desmond Bane. And the Grizzlies have really struggled offensively and rebounding-wise without Steven Adams. So that injury, he's been out since January, I want to say 23rd, 24th. That's going to be a huge injury because clearly we had thought Steven Adams was going to come back this week. We had heard he's been practicing 5-on-5 for the last few days. So without him, and now with Brandon Clark also out, the front court for the Grizzlies continues to get thinner and thinner. And you just kind of figure out more pressure on Jaren Jackson to be a rebounder, more from Xavier Tillman. It's just going to be a really, really tough time because Steven Adams, to me, as great as Ja has been, he is really the glue of this offense. And everyone's seeing it right now with the Grizzlies struggling with him off the floor.
Evan, really good stuff there. Great perspective on Ja Morant and the culture out there in Memphis. And you're right.
You.
America does have a gun problem. There's places in San Francisco Shasky and I will not go into. So that was well said there. Evan, continue the great work, man. I love reading your stuff, man. Proud of you, Rashawn, Naila, man. You guys are doing great work out there, man. Good stuff, Evan.
Appreciate you, brother. Love you, man. Take care. Joe, take care.
Love you too, Evan. Evan
What
Barnes.
a great call.
Memphis Commercial Appeal. Great perspective on Ja Morant.